So let's talk about TV, the big screen, the place where people come together and watch content together as a family, or you just chill and veg out on your own. Uh, Ken gave, I guess, a great intro about me. So I'm with Amazon, based in Seattle. I say I'm not really a developer because the last development projects I worked on were actually Angular 1 and Backbone. So thanks, Gant, for that history lesson. Nowadays, I'm a product manager for TVs with our Fire TVs. So I've talked to developers across hundreds of apps about their TV apps. So I feel like I have some authority. Ken, I think, did a good job. I do like to compete in endurance sports, but I feel like I have to explain the shirt I'm wearing, which is actually from a bike race in Central Oregon 2 years ago. And which leads me to, did anybody play this game? Remember? Yeah. So classic game from the early 90s. And for those who aren't familiar with it, it was about the migration, a path, 2,000 miles, 3,400 kilometers of bankers, farmers, ranchers, miners, et cetera, moving out to the American West. And actually, they ended up right around here, the Willamette River. And what's also crazy, coincidence, is that there's actually literally a new release of the game today. Like, I can't make this up. PS5, so whoever wins that PS5 from Century, you gotta buy this game and play it.
I hope they didn't touch the graphics.
Nah, I don't know. But actually, it's a good segue because so we're gonna change this up a little bit, and we're gonna go back to Oregon Trail style graphics, 8-bit. So with that, you may have seen Amazon at a couple other React conferences. In May, we were at ReactConf. 2 months ago, I was in App.js in Krakow. And this is not going to be the same talk. It's going to be better, is what I like to say. This is going to be a little bit more hands-on, a little bit more about the actual principles of building a TV app, some of those differences. And why is Amazon at these React Native conferences? Well, we have a unique position that we are both a user of React Native to build applications as well as a provider of devices where you can run them on. What kind of apps? Well, some of these. These are listed on our React Native showcase. Amazon recently had a Prime Day past couple days, so if you use the Amazon Shopping app. Actually, the Alexa app, kind of funny enough, when I joined Amazon in 2017, that actually was using Backbone, funnily enough. Now it's moved on to some more modern technologies, I guess. But we use it in a variety of our apps to deploy those experiences across different devices and operating systems. And we also create devices. Smart TVs, Echo devices with Alexa, streaming media players, tablets, in-car infotainment systems, entertainment systems. And we actually have over 200 million Fire TV devices sold, both TVs and the streaming media players. Many of those devices do run a version of Android called Fire OS, based off of AOSP, which means you can take an APK or Android app bundle, deploy it onto Fire OS with some modifications to optimize for the devices. You can build it in your technology of choice, Java, Kotlin, React Native, or Flutter. Probably not a huge popularity in this crowd. But in terms of, so let's move on. So instead of the Oregon Trail, we're going to take the React Native TV trail. And thank you, Generative AI, for creating this. I love some of the typos. So we're going to be on a journey across 5 different areas today. I won't say which generative AI, but because it's misspelled, it must not be an Amazon or AWS AI. Must not be. So why TV? As I said, TV is the biggest screen in the house. But from a developer standpoint, why might you care? Well, some interesting stats from Nielsen is, at least in the US, there's more than 2.3 average number of TVs in the home. Half of those are cord cutters, not hooked up to a set-top box, et cetera. And half the TVs in secondary bedrooms are only used for streaming. And according to Cognitive Market Research, the revenue of these TV apps is over $18 billion in 2022 and is expected to grow such that by 2030, that's almost double. Cool. The challenge, though, is there are many different types of devices and operating systems in the connected TV space. Now, obviously, Amazon does not only fills up a subset of this slide, but we do believe a rising tide lifts all ships. So we are here trying to encourage React Native because that is a great way to tackle this fragmentation problem. There are a number of apps that do use React Native TV for Fire TV today already. So shout out to DirecTV in the US at the bottom and AHA in India. and then I'll talk a little bit more about those top 3. 2 months ago at App.js, I talked a little bit more in detail about NFL. So in the DRY principle, don't repeat yourself, I'm not going to repeat everything, but they do use React Native across mobile, tablet, and TV. You can check out that talk on YouTube for more details. 9Now in Australia also had a talk at App.js on how they use React Native for their connected TVs. Max gave a great talk there. And then final example is TF1 in France. I thought this was a great example. I met them a couple months ago in Paris, and they told me 3 years ago they actually started adopting React Native. They started with Android TV, and then they tackled tvOS for Apple TV, and they were told by experts that it's not going to work. And they were happy to say that they passed all of Apple's validations on the first try. And then, so after that, they've also migrated to Fire TV and are currently working on Smart TV. So I love this example because you don't have to do everything all at once. You can do a gradual migration, and of course, anytime you prove doubters wrong, that's always a plus. All right. So in the spirit of the game, we've bought our supplies. Now we're on the path. So let's learn a little more about fundamentals. So before we build our app, we should know a couple key differences. This is going to be kind of an express version, but the biggest difference is the screen size and how you use it. Even though it's a TV screen could be 10, 100 times bigger than your phone, you're much further away. They call it a 10-foot UI or 3-meter UI. So you have to design your screens differently. There's going to be fewer elements on screen. It's called information density. The typography might be different. The font size might be different. The colors are going to be different. You would never, for instance, have a white background on a TV app. Can you imagine that 11 p.m. at night and your TV app opens, is all white? It'd be terrible. And then the final difference is that most TV apps, but not all, they do focus on media content and streaming. So the UX is designed to get the users to that content as soon as possible. The next one is the way you interact is different. You're going to be using a remote control, a D-pad, concept of focus management. You need to determine how your users are going to interact with the elements and design those and think about how you handle it on the edge cases when you get to the end, et cetera. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. And then finally, another throwback to the game is for those who play the game, it was this is intended for kids. So it's trying to teach an example. You could go hunting, you could shoot your animals, you could shoot a couple bison, you have 2,000 pounds of animals you shot, but you only have the capacity to carry 100 pounds to your wagon. And trying to teach them, about being frugal and not being wasteful. And then in a way, that's kind of the same with TVs. Many of these devices, one, they're not going to be as powerful as an iPhone Pro 15 Max. And they also are often kept longer. Some people keep their TVs or streaming media players 5, 7+ years. So you kind of have to think about how you're going to scale your experience to a variety of devices. You may have to simplify, reduce some animations, et cetera. There's a couple guides already. CallStack is a great guide. There's tools like Flashlight and app to measure Appium to run on devices, and we always encourage trying to run on devices as much as possible. All right, so let's get to building this app. Most TV apps are basically this general pattern. You have a screen where you are going to kind of search for content, search and find content. You have a detail screen. Maybe you can select an episode, change the language, et cetera, and then a playback screen. And I drew this on my iPad with my Apple Pencil, and so there's a couple dollar signs in the playback screen because that, I guess, figuratively and literally is the money screen because that's where all your key KPIs are going to be in terms of content. There could be monetization like ads, et cetera. So the whole goal is to get them to that screen as soon as possible. If you're starting off, so I have my sample app I'm going to show you. We're using a couple things. So we're using Expo to get started. They got a nice TV starter project. For focus management, we're going to use BAM's React TV Space Navigation Library. There's also, you can use like TV Focus Guide View as another option. We're using this because it's component-based, no hooks, and my colleague, my co-author, and I, we just kind of preferred that, at least for this demo. And then Bitmovin is a video player, works across more than just React Native, but we'll just want to keep moving. So we're going to run this on both simulator and a device. I actually have a device up here that will be running on a streaming media player. And in terms of setup, I've got my cheat sheet on the far right, kind of 5 steps. So first setup, you can use Expo. They've got a great starter project with Router TV. And when you do that, actually you get a nice little sample. There it goes. You got a couple of built-in screens on there. I thought about doing this live, but it takes too long to build. So anyway, we got some, we got some. It's like 5 minutes, maybe less. But anyways, it's got some nice built-in screens for handlers for TV. So it's a great way to get started. But I would say this is not actually a super great TV UX. Good starting point, but that's what we're going to do today. We're going to make a better TV experience. For other dependencies, like I mentioned, space navigation, there are a number of steps you have to do for that. So definitely read the tutorial, read the manual. So you import the library, you're adding support for the keyboard, sorry, not keyboard, the D-pad, setting up the remote control, and then there's another library, Pixel Perfect, I'll talk about in a minute. So onto our grid screen. We're first just gonna, KISS, we'll keep it simple, start with just a single row, and to do that, first we need, well, you may already have a data, or you could use generative AI. So in the spirit of Oregon Trail, we're gonna have some Oregon Trail themed movies, and then we're also gonna be using some pixel scaling with the React Native Pixel Perfect, just tie into a hook so that it scales properly on TV. What else? On the grid screen, now, instead of a traditional flat list, which you absolutely can use, but one of the key differences on TV lists is that when you use your remote control, you'll notice pretty much every TV app does this, the actual focused element stays in one place and the list slides below it. So that is something you can't really do with a touch, with a mobile or tablet. And the library has the spatial navigation virtualized list that already does that for us. And then last couple things on this screen is that you can put in handlers and hooks when an element is focused. You're gonna have some special styling so you know that customer knows what's actually being focused on, and you can do hooks for other events when it's focused or selected. Detail screen, this is actually pretty boilerplate, fairly simple. We're using Expo Router, adding a new screen for details, passing in some data, displaying on the screen. I'm making it really simple, not doing like episodes or anything, just keeping it super simple, trying to get people to watch now. And then for the player screen, we're using Bitmovin. In this case, I'm making it super simple. I don't actually have videos for all those Oregon Trail movies, so I'm just using kind of their sample. Fairly straightforward. You got to use an API key. There are some native dependencies for both Apple and Android. So you got to update the pod file. I'm running it in the simulator, so it's going from grid to details to the player. This is just the default player. Now, one thing, I did actually include the logs on here, and one thing the reason is, anytime you do adaptive streaming, is that it actually downloads chunks at a time. So it's always reevaluating to see what's your internet speed. That's why you notice when you first open a video, it may be kind of blurry, grainy, and then it gets better. So that's how adaptive streaming works. And actually having the logs is actually somewhat useful to see when things change, the resolution changes, et cetera. And Android's same thing. In this case, we had to modify a separate native dependency for build Gradle and Android. And one call out is that the video is actually different in this case. It's because we're using a different streaming codec. Apple, we're using HLS, and then for Android, we're using MPEG-Dash. Either way, it's just sample content. It's not a big deal. And then finally, on this, we have our, I am running on a real device. So we're running on a Fire Stick, so taking that same Android build, I added 2 more rows and running it on my Fire Stick, which is running on one of my TVs, and fortunately, as suspected, it works. So I'm able to use the remote control. I'm able to use the back button on the remote control to go back in between screens, and sure enough, it's going to load the same video. So that is probably about the extent of an app you could realistically build in 15 minutes, depending on how well familiar you are with the Focus Management Library. But if we want to do something better, let's talk about what those improvements are. Well, we didn't really finish that grid screen. There's a couple other elements on here that are very TV-centric. Almost every TV app has this or something like it. The top one is the hero banner at the top. So it's either just going to be rotating content, or as you change content selected, it's going to change what's visible up there, something that you don't see in mobile or tablet apps. And then the sliding drawer on the left. BAM does a good job of the Space Navigation Library talks about how you implement the drawer. Just a couple of details on it. We're using Expo Drawer for this implementation. And again, you want to do some logic on if an element is selected, what you want to do to style it, where it's going to go. And then on the right here is where how you open and close the drawer. So since we'll have a position of what's focused, the idea is once you go to the far left and you hit left again, then you want to open the drawer. So there's logic in there. There's nothing super fancy about it, but it's worth calling out because that's a very TV-specific action. For the hero banner, fairly straightforward. We're just using state variables. So when you change the focus, we change what the title, description, image that's being loaded, and throwing on a linear gradient in there just for kicks, make it look a little better. And so by the time it's done, it's going to look like this. So this is the Apple TV simulator, and now it looks quite a bit better. This could be a real TV app. I mean, for Oregon Trail enthusiasts, if we actually had that content, it could be great. And so this is the default player. You can fast forward, etc. And I think that's pretty much it for that. So now let's actually try it on a real device. So what I'm going to do is, so I actually have a Fire Stick hooked up here. There we go. So this is our Fire Stick. The speaker Wi-Fi wasn't working on this, so I had to connect to the conference Wi-Fi. And so we will pray that it works. Otherwise, I'll go to my my backup video. So what I'm going to do, so in my code, I'm going to run yarn Android. So it's going to build and run, and then it'll eventually load. And I guess I'll take that time. So this is our Fire TV UI. For those who haven't done it, we call it a content-forward experience. So rather than just having apps, we try to show content that the customer is interested in. In this case, it's showing my shows that I've recently watched or my wife has watched. Yes, Bluey is on. We don't have kids, but we watch Bluey over here. Actually, because it's great to try in other languages like Spanish. So we're trying to learn Spanish, so we're watching Bluey in Spanish. Anyway, so this is building. We get to see it, and there's a couple small differences I made in this app. One is I'm actually using DRM on this device. So so DRM, digital rights management. If you try to run DRM in a simulator, it's going to fail. It's not supported. So this is my app over here, and the video is going to have something slightly different. So I'm going to do watch now. This is where I'm kind of crossing my fingers. I'm looking for, okay, good. So the video is coming up, and what's cool about this one is it actually tells you the frame rate. And also I'm getting some information down below on my logs, my video logs, on if it's actually working. Now, I'm going to enable, and the resolution is going to get better. It's at 480p right now. It'll eventually get up to 1080p. I'm actually going to back out of this for a second because I want to show a neat diagnostic. There's a developer mode that is documented, so I've got to do this special sequence. Oops, I don't want that one. I want 1, 2, 3. There we go. So this is a FireOS feature. So System X-Ray and advanced options for codecs. So this is available. You do have to turn on, just look it up on our website. So this is telling me my app is 359 megabytes foreground memory. And then there's no videos playing right now, so the information on the right is not that useful. So I am trying to replay the video. However, what may have happened is because I pressed it so long, it's still listening to all these events. But what I will do is, the other thing I wanted to show while this catches up is, oh, I'm seeing some good logs. See, this is why the logs are useful for video. Here we go. Now, I don't think the resolution's coming in very well, but right now it's telling me that I'm at, FireOS is telling me at 320 by 142 resolution for this with a little bit of letterboxing, so that's consistent with. Now it's 854 by 380, consistent with the 480p. I also have information on the below that's saying the resolution changed. So this is one of the useful tips you can see, diagnostic information. And then the last thing I'm going to show live and see if it crashes is BAM Flashlight. So Flashlight, it's a super cool tool. It only works for Android at the moment, which is fine because my device is based off Android. And what I'm doing is I'm trying to, here we go. So this gives me some really cool information, let's say frame rate, CPU usage, JS thread. Now, because it's doing video, it's not doing too much on the JS thread. I'm going to back out a little bit, actually, because one of the things, maybe, that I've noticed is actually the scrolling on this. So this app, I would say, is not quite production ready because the scrolling is actually kind of slow on device. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move on to my slides, because one of the things I've done is try to make some changes. Is, for instance, when I generated the images, all of those were PNG files at 2 to 2.5 megabytes. That's kind of a lot. So if I resize them to quite a bit down to 200 kilobytes, you start to see a little bit of an improvement. So the FPS and CPU and RAM usage all improves a little bit when I go to smaller images. There's probably still some other things I need to change. Again, I'm not necessarily a developer, not a production developer, but certainly it's good to be at least measure what is happening, so you can improve. So we're getting near the end of our trail, and if you want to get started, well, we actually did just publish a version of this app to our Amazon App Dev GitHub repo. By just published, I think it was literally yesterday. Unfortunately, there are no Oregon Trail images. We could not get those approved to publish. So you can try your own. Maybe I'll make my own fork with the images included. But this basically has it's the exact same app. We did take out the video player for now. You can implement your own video player, but it does work on Android, iOS, and web actually too. You can use React Native Web, so that runs. We also have a couple of guides as well. So with FireOS, one of my colleagues, Anisha Malde, she's spoken at some other conferences. We just published an article this week on getting started with React Native for FireOS. Other resources as well. There's a great blog, React Native TV blog. Thanks to everyone who, the broader community, for helping contribute to that. My colleague, Giovanni, he posts an update every Tuesday, TV App Development Secret Tuesday, and actually a huge shout out to Giovanni because he helped with this app. Bitmovement has a nice guide. And then once you have your app, there's a couple things you might have to do. Every device is going to have some of its own optimizations. For Amazon, we have things like voice and live TV, EPG integrations you can do. Those are all documented, so just know that there's some customization you can do in each type of device. Testing tools, I showed you the System X-Ray, super cool. We also have things like live app testing, so you want to test it and send it to others for beta. And then if you are interested in learning a bit more about what Amazon is doing with React Native, we do have a QR code. I have the same QR code is on another slide as well, but from that you'll get information on guides, product updates. If you have a third-party library, definitely we'd love to hear how you're using that for React Native. We also have beta opportunities for new initiatives that we haven't announced yet. So we're trying to build a React Native community. That's why we're coming here. And also the after party tonight, or at least the first after party. I don't know about this. I don't know about the after party, but that is sponsored by us. So if you ever wanted to say you got free drinks on Amazon, tonight is your lucky chance. Is your chance. And then also we are hiring. We do have a couple open job recs. There's a solutions architect role. It's kind of like a partner engineer. That actually would be working with me, working with app developers. And we also have open SDE and front-end engineering roles on Amazon.jobs. I work in the devices org, but there's also openings other places. So that was quite a mouthful. We have reached the end of our trail. I hope you have enjoyed your trip on the React Native TV trail. Shout out to Expo and Infinite Red. I know Ignite also has a TV template. And my last thing is, so I feel like for my shirt, I need to update my shirt so that we survive this. So with that, thank you very much.